What is going on, everyone? I'm General Chief. Welcome to the Promethean Tides. We're, of course, as always, joined by Breaker. What's going on, Breaker?
Shit, motherfucker.
And we are also joined by Scifen. What is going on, Scifen?
Hey, what's up? Doing good.
Awesome. Just to let anyone know who's watching this, we recently went over to Rumble. So basically, the whole catalog of our videos are up there, and they will continue to be posted there. Rumble's a nice platform, so go check us out there. There will be a link in the description, and I think that just going forward in the future, if we do any after shows, because they tend to be a little bit spicier, they're probably going to be exclusively on Rumble. Yeah, there's just a little bit of keeping up there with what's going on, but I guess. Scifen wanted to, I guess, do a debate or a conversation or something on the revolutionary phenotype. So, yeah, I guess we'll get into that. I guess my position is that I think the revolutionary phenotype exists. I can go over essentially what it is. It's the concept that a phenotype, which is anything that can be expressed by the genotype, it's the idea that phenotype can become a replicator itself in certain circumstances, and it can come to rival the original genotype. It is hypothesized or theorized that this has happened at least once before. This is with the RNA world hypothesis. The idea is that RNA was the original replicator, and it was kind of storing its genetic code in this thing that it invented called DNA. And DNA is it has some pluses and minuses in comparison to RNA. RNA can be enzymatic, which is one idea as to why it is that RNA came first. DNA has a more difficult time of interacting with its surroundings, and in fact, RNA has to transcribe RNA, and I guess in modern day organisms, DNA transcribes RNA, and then RNA translates into protein, but yeah, so as I was saying, the idea is that there used to be RNA that was the replicator. It made this thing called DNA, which was good at just maintaining the genetic fidelity of the RNA. Unfortunately, that means that RNA has to go through DNA for replication, and DNA has to go through RNA for replication in that scenario. That's where I guess what JFG, John Francois Gary P. You can check out his YouTube channel. He talks a lot about this, or at least he used to.
He's mostly on Odyssey these days.
Yeah, he's on Odyssey, but
JFG Tonight on Odyssey and rarely on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't think he talks that much about the Phenotypic Revolution nowadays. I think he's more on politics, but yeah, the DNA and the RNA they enter a replicator tango, and then eventually, what happened was that the DNA won out in the replicator tango, and now RNA is just the slave of DNA. RNA does not actually get to replicate; DNA does, and so now RNA is the phenotype, whereas it used to be the genotype, and DNA is the genotype, whereas it used to be the phenotype, and that is basically the Phenotypic Revolution in a nutshell. The concern that certain people have is that this is something that could happen again, and we can get into the details of that. But that's I guess that's my opening salvo. What's your position on this, Ivan?
My position is that I don't know much about it. It seems that people who advocate for the awareness of a revolutionary phenotype, insofar as it being bad for us are concerned, seem to generally hold like a negative sentiment toward it, and they seem to have already come to a conclusion which we don't necessarily know for sure. And my position is that I think we have to wait for like any kind of emerging evidence to transpire in order to like fully make a position.
Okay, so you're saying um, this thing that could potentially, I guess, make human beings go extinct. We should let it happen and then see
That's not what I'm
if
saying,
it's
no.
if it's bad, and then we can
No, that's not what I'm
determine.
saying.
Okay, no.
No.
How would we make that sort of determination then? If
Well, we've already kind of made a determination about genetic editing, right?
mhm.
So if you look at what happened back in China around 2017, I believe, um, I forgot what his name was, but I think his name was he something. Anyways, yeah, this Chinese scientist who's basically like the Elon Musk
No, he's not.
of Chinese people.
No, he's
Oh,
not.
that's what other people say, but I'm just
He
quoting
was
what they
just a
said.
random scientist, and he wasn't that good at his job. You're talking about uh, the two Chinese female twins that he tried to make
Yeah, yeah,
them
I'm talking about that. Yeah,
immune to HIV, and he failed.
yeah.
Yeah, he's not the Elon Musk of China.
Well, I'm just quoting what other people have said.
Who said that?
This is not my opinion. The Chinese people.
The Chinese people themselves said that he was Elon Musk.
Yeah.
How many Chinese people did you talk to about that?
I didn't talk to any Chinese people. I'm just quoting what I saw.
Like an article, like a magazine article.
Yeah.
Okay, so like this particular author feels like he's the Elon Musk of China. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Okay. Anyways, so they generally hold the sentiment that, or no, they have an ethical practice where, it's not allowed to genetically modify a human being in vitro. And so the worry is that if they meddle with the genome of an embryo, it could cause harm to the individual themselves, or it could cause harm to future generations who inherit the changes made to the genome. And I have looked at a few papers about CRISPR-Cas9 and other gene editing techniques, and a lot of people like to say that it's like quote unquote molecular scissors, but it's not really much of a scissor, but rather it's more like tearing a sheet of paper, right, in half. Like you might not get it exactly, you'll seldom get it exactly in half. And there's going to be things that you miss within the genome, basically. Like you could end up, to put it through an analogy, you could tell someone to go to 123 Main Street, but they end up going to like 1234 Main Street, right? So it's not always going to pair up one to one.
Or
And my stance on gene editing, as it currently
just to
pertains to the evidence.
continue with your metaphor there. 123 Main Street. Yeah, it could be 1234 Main Street, or it could
Yeah,
be that,
exactly. Like it's not
or it could be
perfect.
that there are 800 different 123 Main Streets throughout all of
Yeah.
America. Is it the one in New York? Is it the
Yeah, if
one
you
in
want to
San
expand it.
Francisco? Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, you could expand it. So it's very imprecise as it stands right now. And as it stands right now, I don't think that gene editing should be utilized in any capacity until we find out that it's safe and that it's not going to have any kind of like deleterious effects on the individual and the people who inherit it in the future.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was really happy to see that it didn't work out. I'm not sure if it caused any harm, but it doesn't seem as though it caused any benefit. And I'm really happy to see when that sort of technology doesn't work, or when it really only causes harm, because that makes people less likely to want to use it. So like if it caught, like if they did this, and I don't know, it caused the death of the two um twin girls. I mean, that would be unfortunate, but in the scale of things, it's not something that I find that concerning. I mean, shit, people die all the time. The issue is when this sort of technology works and then it makes other people want to get it. Also, we should point out here for the purpose of this discussion or debate, um, this is specific to germline genetic engineering. So this is specifically gene therapies that can be passed down onto one's offspring. There are lots and lots of gene therapies that exist just on the somatic cell level, where you can't pass it on to your kids. Those kind of gene therapies are fine. Some people have even called the COVID vaccine one of these gene therapies. It's not quite, but it's in the same ballpark. So yeah, I mean it's the germline one that's really the problem. And I guess so Scifen, what sort of data do you want to see before you can know if this is a good thing or a bad thing? Like how far do we have to go with this technology?
It would have to cause no harm to the individual, and it would have to cause no harm to any future progeny that's made via this genetically modified individual.
And then once that happens, when it either it causes no harm or actually it elicits some sort of like benefit, maybe it makes you taller or smarter or better looking, then you would say, okay, that's a good technology. We should carry forward with that.
Well, as it stands, there's no actual, like we don't understand the full capacity of like the genome, right? We don't understand like all of its functions. We only have kind of like bits and pieces of like how it works, right? So right now, the way that gene editing is theorized to be used in the future is to remove any kind of genetic diseases or any kind of abnormalities, such as I'm thinking cystic fibrosis and yeah, like a lack of HIV immunity, things like that. But as to make it taller or whatever, like there are already ways to do that. Like kids who don't grow to be as tall as like their parents or as their classmates, generally what they'll have them do if they desire to, be taller is take human growth hormone and they'll administer it onto the person, I think, until the plate closes, which is around like 18 to like your early 20s, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care about that. That's you're not altering the genome to do that. I mean, you can have your legs broken and then I guess stitched back together and be a little bit taller. Fine, whatever. I care not.
That's pretty extreme surgery, though.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, if people want to do that, whatever. Like, I mean, it's not affecting the genome, so it's not really at least given this discussion that we're having, it's not even relevant.
Well, yeah, I'm just simply saying that that if we saw, people desiring these things, they probably would already give it to their children when they're growing up.
Well, that's like I said, if they want to give them human growth hormones, I mean, I would say that there's probably some issues with that. I don't know though.
Yeah,
So,
like obviously, yeah.
but if parents, you know what, I advocate for parental sovereignty. If parents want to do that kind of shit, they can do whatever they want. As long as the kid and the parents want it, fine, whatever. Uh, but no, so you were saying that we can use maybe some of these germline genetic engineering therapies to get rid of maybe some genetic diseases or just genes that aren't working precisely as they should. No, of course, I don't think that there's a person on the planet that doesn't have some gene in their body that's doing something weird. I mean, everyone is at risk of something for whatever reason. I mean, everyone has some sort of weird mutation. No one has just a perfectly functional set of all 20,000 genes. They're all operating precisely as they should. But, with, this technology as we go into the future, maybe we could have that. Maybe we could get rid of just all of the little genetic problems that people have, Like that's something that people could do. And in fact, I bet people would elect to do that. Like, why not? It would make you make you healthier. It would make your babies healthier. It would make their babies healthier.
Yeah, but what the proponents of the revolutionary phenotype says or say is that, we're eventually going to become dependent or slaves to this like phenotypic creation, right? Whether it be like a company who edits your genes or like a what is it called again? Or like a company or a robot or whatever they call it. And that like if you don't go through that process, then you're gonna end up fucked. And that eventually, it will eventually destroy itself, and that humanity will no longer exist as we know it today, or it just won't even exist at all.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a logical outcome of like going down that road, and that's a future I would like to avoid. So, from my perspective, this is such a an existentially dangerous thing for mankind itself that even myself, who is like ultra libertarian, I say nope, that's banned. Like you're not allowed to do that. We got to get the government involved to make that strictly illegal. Give like literally the death penalty to anyone that does that shit because it's worse than weapons of mass destruction. Like that's my position.
Can you elaborate on how you got there?
Well, because this technology, it's more dangerous than nuclear warfare or like biological warfare, any sort of warfare really. The only thing that might be as dangerous as it would be like a malicious AGI, an artificial general intelligence, and even JFG thinks that that's not as dangerous. This is basically the most existentially threatening thing to mankind aside from the sun exploding tomorrow. So, and it's very insidious. So anyone that goes down this pathway, I think you just have to, well, basically, I think the death penalty for anyone that attempts to go down this pathway, it's too dangerous. We have to put the firm government boot onto the neck of anyone that wants to do this. And that's me saying this is like hardcore libertarian. That's
How is
I feel.
it? How is it as dangerous as a nuclear weapon?
Well, no, it's not. It's not just more dangerous than a nuclear weapon. It's more dangerous than all-out nuclear warfare, right? Because, um, like, let's say that like the whole world erupted in nuclear Armageddon. Britain, France, India, Pakistan, China, Russia, the United States, Israel. They're all launching nukes at one another. Um, I mean, there are going to be some people that survive, right? Like, I mean, maybe the people that are living in New Zealand survive. Maybe the people, I don't know,
Yeah,
out
the
in.
analogy that JFG uses is that viruses are the remnants of the quote unquote RNA world creatures or whatever.
Sure.
Not creatures, but you get what I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there were some survivors, fine, but uh, I think that in this sort of instance, there would be some survivors if there was nuclear Armageddon. I don't think that there would be any human
Yeah.
survivors if this were to take place. It would be really brutal. So we have to avoid it.
Yeah, but how exactly is it worse than nuclear warfare? Like, how do these events
Hmm.
unfold exactly?
Okay, so um, let's say that uh, let's say I was this Chinese doctor guy, and I release let's say that it works, right? I'm able to make it so that you can't get AIDS. Well, then a lot of people are going to start wanting that, and they'll say, hey, can you give that to my kids? And it's great because once you get it, it's not just protecting your kids, it's protecting all the kids that they have, all the kids they have. It's like a permanent edit to your genetic lineage.
Okay.
And so that's cool. And if it were to stop there, then maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But of course, science progresses, and so the next thing that would come out is, hey, we can cure a whole bunch of these genetic abnormalities. Parkinson's disease, if you have any potential with that, we can get rid of it. If you have genetic potential for heart disease or for Alzheimer's, we can get rid of that. Well, okay, everyone's going to want that, absolutely. Um, and then it'll continue to progress because, I mean, why stop there? Why not actually go for some more gain of function stuff, right? Maybe uh, someone releases a gene therapy that makes your kids a little bit taller, right? Maybe not by much, maybe just on average by like a centimeter. But someone releases that, oh hell yeah, they're going to be people that want their kids to be a little bit taller. And what happens over time is that people that get uh, the the gene therapy, either because they're wealthy enough to afford it, or let's assume that the therapy is cheap, just because they want it. Maybe some people, they feel like they don't want it. They want to stay all natural. And other people, they're like, fuck it. Yeah, I want a taller baby. Now, in the next generation, the taller baby that has absolutely, that a lot of their genetic problems have been eliminated, 0% risk of Parkinson's, 0% risk of Alzheimer's, all this kind of stuff. They're a little bit taller, maybe they're more handsome. They end up just doing better in the competitive environment that is the ecosystem of, I guess, human civilization. And that means that, on average, they'll get a few more resources during their lifetime, and they'll have a few more kids. Maybe be in a higher position in civilization just because of some of those genetic gifts. So the people that don't participate in this will be outcompeted, and the people that do participate will come to dominate. Anyone that isn't participating will basically go extinct. Natural humans will eventually go extinct, and this process will continue. You'll have smarter and smarter and stronger and taller babies, and it's all fantastic for a while. Humanity is just getting better and better and better all the time. But here's the thing: the knowledge about what these special genes are, that has to be stored somewhere, and it's stored external to the DNA. You could have it on something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. Something as simple as that. It's just a thing that can contain this information. It contains all the genes that people might want. And hell, you might have, different sorts of people. Maybe, kind of like playing an RPG. Sometimes you want to min-max some stuff. So maybe like, you want your kid to be like super smart. Well, okay, here's the smart package. You want your kid to be a great athlete? Okay, here's the athlete package. You want them to be a stone cold killer psychopath? Well, here's the banker politician package. And so I mean, you could have all of that, and then human beings, well, they end up becoming dependent on this Excel spreadsheet, right? And now. This would be unbeknownst to anyone, but over time there would be, I guess, a want for human beings to protect the data that is in that Excel spreadsheet, right? Because it's kind of like how you would die for your kids, but you wouldn't necessarily die for someone else's kids. The reason is because the kids are related to you, right? Well, you're related to this Excel spreadsheet now. And so it's in your interest to defend it. And actually, it's the information that's on the Excel spreadsheet that is more important than you. I mean, whatever children you have, it's just more representation of the Excel spreadsheet. You are the phenotypic shadow of what is now the true genotype, the Excel spreadsheet. And the point, there isn't like a hard and fast line at which this happens, but eventually there is a replicator tango, and eventually one of them comes to be dominant, and it'll most likely be the Excel spreadsheet, and now human beings are a phenotype, and our DNA is no longer the genotype. That's kind of a process by which this can happen. And it's incredibly dangerous. And the issue is that it's not the entire time it seems nice. The entire time you're walking down the road and everything's getting better. Your children are healthier and taller and smarter and happier, and everything is going better. Society is becoming better. It's insidious. It lulls you in like a pitcher plant or a Venus flytrap. It's like, dude, everything's great. Here, suckle on this nectar, suckle on this honey. Like, this is awesome. Got everything that you need right here. And the entire time that you're marching towards your doom, everything's getting better. It's a terrible, evil thing.
Oh, snap.
And that's why we don't want to set down that path whatsoever. Not a single foot down that path. Walking even an inch down that path is dangerous because of how it lulls you in, because of how insidious it is. That's why death penalty for anyone that even sets 1 foot down that path, in my opinion.
Snap indeed. Still there, Scifen.
Yeah, well, I guess
Scifen, where did you go?
we lost.
Yo, is my
Siphon.
mic not working? Holy
Uh-oh.
shit, dude. The feds are trying to take me
Damn.
down. Holy shit.
Oh, snap. They glow in the
Anyways.
dark. You gotta run them over with your car.
No, but anyways, yeah, no, I was just asking how you know that human beings will eventually come to protect the genetic information stored in, let's say, computer or another kind of device or storage container, um, and it won't go like, let's say, another way. Like, let's say they're aware that this is going to happen, and they choose not to necessarily do that. Or is your argument then going to be that it's going to be so gradual that nobody will notice it's happening?
Well, it is a very gradual process. This occurs over many generations. But there, let me put it like this. Let's say that there are two groups of people. You wouldn't expect that there would just be one ideal type of human, right? You would probably have a number of different Excel spreadsheets with different plans for, different humans. Like a little bit of advantage here, a little disadvantage there. Now, all these people are going to be based off of these different, I guess, blueprints from these Excel spreadsheets. Now, let's say that the group of people A from Excel spreadsheet A don't protect their Excel spreadsheet, and it falls into ruin. Well, that means that that's dead, and those people are dead, so they cease to exist. But the people in group B, they do protect their Excel spreadsheet. Well, then they continue to exist. So you can see that actually this is just natural selection playing
Wait,
out.
how do you know that Group A is going to continue to exist? Like, what if Group A doesn't protect the Excel spreadsheet and they just end up having children anyway?
No, well, then it's the same initial problem as I was discussing. People that abandon their Excel spreadsheet are outcompeted by people that are maintaining their allegiance to the Excel spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet guarantees that you're very tall, very smart, all these things. The minute that you get off of that,
Okay.
you become less competitive in whatever the environment is. And the reason is because you can the Excel spreadsheet is basically able to move more rapidly than can just base DNA, right? DNA has a certain speed at which it can evolve, and it mostly has to do so more or less haphazardly, randomly. There's some data to indicate that it's not entirely random. Some genes experience a greater amount of mutation than others. Especially the oldest genes are the least likely to have mutations because they're so basally important for the organism. But there's only a certain speed at which it can evolve. With an Excel spreadsheet, you can go in and you can say, okay, it seems as though we need smarter people going forward into the future. Well, okay, let's boost intelligence for the next couple generations, and yeah, and so.
And who would be making the decision? Would it be the human being or the computer? Are you saying it's going to be the computer?
Well,
or is it going to be both? Like because you're. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be any number of things making the decision. I guess ultimately, it would be natural selection itself that ultimately makes the decision, but proximally, I mean, yeah, it could be a computer, could be an AI, it could be a human, or a team of humans, scientists, I don't know.
The AI one would be kind of weird because what would be the preferred selection parameters for the AI? Because the AI isn't fundamentally human. It's kind of just like this weird mirror of humanity. Whatever its experience of reality is always going to be distant and alien from your true comprehension of what's really going on in there. So if it's a computer or a general AI making these decisions, it might just decide over many millions of years this could happen. It's like, you know what? Humans would ultimately be more efficient if they were just turned into slugs that could crawl over these genetic material collection grids, and then I wouldn't have to send out all these drones to collect everyone's DNA samples to figure this out. So to make it easier for me and more effective, I'm just going to evolve humans into slugs.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I
y-
mean,
this is the AI black
eventually,
box, yeah.
eventually in the far future, you know, with uh, after the replicator tango has taken place, and the true replicator is the Excel spreadsheet, then it can turn humans into whatever it wants. They would no longer, it would no longer be pushing for them to be tall gods, but I mean, yeah, they could turn them into slugs or whatever, remove their consciousness. I mean, maybe most humans don't actually need to think. Maybe you just need them to go into the factory and fucking, put the cog on the thing, and that, like, so just remove consciousness. Fuck it, they don't need that. Um, so yeah, I mean, in the far future, like the horrors that would result, I mean, are potentially unknowable. But uh, ultimately, here's the thing. Um, this is all still nature, essentially, right? So with RNA, that was nature, but with it was the alpha version of nature on Earth, and that's with RNA as the replicator. And it didn't last very long, and it did some interesting chemistry, but honestly, it was kind of boring. And then I guess that now we're on the beta version of nature on Earth, and this is with DNA as the replicator. And it's actually been really interesting. It's made some really cool stuff. Velociraptors, bats, ginkgo biloba, humans. Some really standout characters have come out of this.
I have a question. So is your issue that we won't have any kind of insight into this process and therefore won't be able to control it to further our own interests? Or if we are able to control our own interests, then you see that as leading to a lot, like a slippery slope?
No. I don't think that I think that humans try to control things at their folly. I'm not
What do you mean
interested.
by that?
Well, I'm not interested in human beings controlling shit, really.
Why not?
Well, because I think that we're not wise enough to really like we're very arrogant to think that we should be controlling things, and we do control things, but it's at our folly. We are not wise enough to do so, in my opinion.
And who is? Or
Yeah.
what is?
Well, I would say that the machinations of nature itself is probably wiser than we are, and we can go into that, but that's kind of a side topic. But
Well, I would say it's pretty important because, well, in that case, aren't there other things beside the things that we make, or I'm sorry, beside the revolutionary phenotype that we create or beget, that could also be folly in our understanding or our ability to be wise about it?
uh, yeah, sure. Like
And it would follow that there are things now that we've created that could, lead to a lot of the implications that are similar to the revolutionary phenotype, but just in a very different flavor. So
like what?
I don't know.
I mean, for instance, we invented cigarettes, right? Now cigarettes are they're cool, but they kill a lot of people. And like, all right, like that was maybe, in a utilitarian perspective, maybe that was like a net bad invention, but it's not an existential threat to humanity. It's just like kind of this thing that hurts us a bit. Like there honestly, I don't think that there's that many existential threats to humanity. The only, like I was saying, the only other one that I can really think of is um uh if we just flat out invent like a Terminator 2 style what's the name of that AI breaker?
Well, I would say that nuclear war is more of a present
Skynet.
threat.
Skynet. Yeah, I mean maybe inventing Skynet would be the next most damaging existential threat. Nuclear weapons are more like cigarettes. They'll kill a lot of people, but it's not and it'll harm the human race and maybe even set it back. But I mean, shit, even if we bomb ourselves back into the Stone Age, we've lost, like, what, like, 20,000 years or something? Like, honestly, in the scope of things, like, 20,000 years isn't much. We can recover pretty quickly from being set back in, 20,000 years. It'll take us about 20,000 years.
Yeah,
On
there are two
geologic
things.
time,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal. But then you have other things that actually have the potential to fully extinct humanity, and there's no recovering from that.
Well, from my understanding, there are two things that will occur when, um, like nuclear fallout happens, where every country decides to detonate its own nuclear set of weapons, and that's that there's going to be a lot of nuclear fallout, and that most places will be uninhabitable, and that due to the surrounding two conditions, that humanity itself will go extinct. But yeah, as we've said before, like that is a different topic, but I'm just like I just want to know,
What about
like
like
if we
the
can't defer to ourselves, then you're saying that we should refer to the machinations of nature itself, is that correct?
Well, okay, so to address your first point, yeah, like you could have 99% of people die, but 1% of 7 billion is well, that's 70 million people still. And you can repopulate from 70 million people. And I mean, maybe it'll just be the people out in the Pacific Islands that survive. They're just way out there in the middle of the ocean. I mean, maybe. And it might be a struggle, but I think that humanity can still recover from that. There are certain things that are unrecoverable. And so we have to like I would weigh um probably nuclear Armageddon as worse than uh global warming, and I would rank, like, let's say, a Phenotypic Revolution as way worse than nuclear Armageddon, right? So like not all catastrophes are the same uh uh bad.
Yeah, but there's a chance. There's a chance that it would kill 100% of humanity and it would go extinct.
Okay,
And
so there's
this theoretical notion of a revolutionary phenotype or a Skynet is far less likely than a nuclear war killing 100% of humanity.
well, okay, let me put it like this.
It's a
Let,
much more present danger than those two,
well,
I would say.
okay, so I would put the chance of a nuclear war actually killing every single last human on Earth at very low. Um, I would put the chance of a phenotypic revolution, making all humans on the face of the planet go extinct, as extremely high, like almost 100%. So like I find one to be a lot more threatening. In the same way that, like, there's no way that climate change is going to end up killing everyone on the planet. Like, that makes no sense. Just go up into the mountains if the water level rises too much. Like, people will survive. People will die, but humanity itself will survive. Um, Now, you were saying, like who do we trust? Um,
Or what do we trust? And you're saying the machinations of nature, is that what you're saying?
well, I mean, what do we trust? That's such a broad question. It's like, um,
Well, clearly you're postulating that we, to a high extent, or a great extent, cannot trust ourselves because of this, so then what do we trust?
well,
What do we place our wisdom on, to be more clear?
okay, let me. It's not. I don't think that I would go so far as to just say flat out we can't trust ourselves. Like,
Well, I mean,
I'm
revolutionary phenotype, right?
right. That doesn't mean that we can't trust ourselves inherently. That's not necessarily
Well, you
connected.
said that the minds of men are folly, which means that we can't trust ourselves because we're so inherently flawed. So what can we find that is better than us,
No,
so to
some of the
speak,
some of the things that human
and not
beings
flawed?
invent are folly. It's not that man's mind is inherently folly.
Oh, okay. Well, earlier you said that the minds of men are folly, but okay.
Uh, there are things that have come out of the minds of men that are folly. I don't think that I said that man's mind is folly. Period, because that's quite an extreme statement. But uh, so I mean, for instance, right? I'm an empiricist, so like I trust my senses. Like, what else can I possibly trust? So like I trust that. Um, to some extent, I have to trust my fellow man. Um, but I mean, I guess at a certain point, it's like, okay, once you get to like large enough structures, like, can I trust the people in my tribe? Yeah. Or the people in my family? Yeah, yeah. Can I trust my neighbor? Probably. But it's like, shit. Can I trust the government? Do I trust Fauci? I'm not so certain about that. Like, for whatever reason, at a certain, like, um when things get to a large enough like structure, like they become inherently untrustworthy. Like, do I trust the Chinese government? No, probably not. I don't think that any of these large structures are actually have my best interest in mind, and neither do the mega corporations either. So like you're asking, who do you trust? I don't know. Shit, I would trust I would trust my neighbor. It seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you trust, Siphen?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But going back onto what we were talking about, or what you talked about, what you clarified to me
you're
about.
Not sure what to trust?
Well, I know that I can trust my senses, right? But as to appeal to like a larger organization, I don't really know.
So you're stuck at you trust the things that your eyes can see, but outside of that, you just don't know.
Do we want to talk about like axiomatic systems and like what we trust in, or do we want to talk about the revolutionary phenotype?
Well, you were the one that was asking me what I trust, so I'm curious about what you trust.
You brought it into it, Sci-Fi.
Well, I never. Other than trusting my own senses, I haven't really postulated anything else.
Right, that's why I asked you.
So do we want to talk about like what I trust, or like what I further? Do we want to talk about that, or do we want to talk about the revolutionary phenotype? No, I was asking you that because it pertains to the revolutionary phenotype.
Okay.
So do we want to have a discussion on like what I trust, or do we want to have a discussion on the revolutionary phenotype?
Well, I mean, maybe it's pertinent, right? Because it seems as though, you're not sure about the revolutionary phenotype. I guess you're not really sure about anything. So,
that's a bold assumption to make, but okay.
Well,
do we want to detract from the conversation, or do we want to talk about the thing that we were meant to talk about?
I didn't make an assumption. I said it seems as
Sir, you're detracting from the conversation. Do we want to go back?
Hold on, buddy. Hold on.
You're talking isms.
You're getting a little bit heated. I was just saying that it seems as though you're not sure about anything. You've said this evening that you're not sure about a lot of things. I honestly haven't heard anything that you seem to be sure.
And I said
about.
that's a quite a bold assumption, and
it seems to be that
it seems to be that me inquiring.
I'm telling you.
It seems to be that me inquiring. It seems to be that me inquiring on your system is getting your pennies in a twist. So do you want to get them untwisted?
No. Look,
you don't want to get them untwisted? Oh, okay.
Hey,
wait a minute.
That's really nice. Okay.
What I was saying is that this is what it seems like to me. I wasn't saying that you don't trust anything. What I'm saying is that
okay.
From what I can tell from my own senses, it seems as though you're unsure about a lot of things. I'm just telling you. So do you want to have a conversation on this or not? We can talk about.
Let's go down that road. But let's go down the road of what you trust, Siphen, because like you seem as of yet unsure that the revolutionary phenotype is worse than the counter examples you brought up, like war and stuff. Like you seem to have this fundamental uncertainty around this thing. So let's in fact go into what would be the level of certainty that you would require to know that this is a good or bad thing per se.
I'm not too sure why this is relevant onto the discussion that we're having. I came in here to have a discussion about the revolutionary phenotype and its implications. I didn't come in here to talk about any kind of philosophical quandary. If so, I would have brought in different things, and I would have actually ensured myself to have this conversation, and I would have agreed to it. But it seems like I came here under false pretenses, so...
You can't be 100% prepared for everything, Sci-Fi.
Well, that's not what I'm implying. I don't know why you're placing that on me, but okay, it just seems that I've been lied to, which is okay.
Whoa.
I'm okay with being lied to a certain point.
Upset. This is weird.
Well, what's even weirder is that you seem to be postulating something that's purely theoretical, but okay.
What you mean the revolutionary phenotype? Yeah, it is theoretical.
Yeah.
A lot of things are theoretical.
Well, I'm saying that
is theoretical.
I'm just saying it exists insofar as the book that you and me have read have said to exist.
Well, I think that there's a very reasonable argument that it it did occur during the RNA world, that it's happened before. I guess the theoretical part is there. The hypothetical part is will it happen again, right? So that's basically what we're discussing. From what I read, even the RNA world hypothesis isn't
insofar as we're concerned, just that a hypothesis, and there are other contending hypotheses.
Yeah, and I would contend that it seems very likely that DNA didn't just emerge whole cloth. There were probably things that came before DNA, such as RNA. And an example that I would give for that is look at a ribosome, right? Um, the very thing that actually does the enzymatic activity in the ribosome that actually allows for mRNAs to be translated into protein. The thing that's doing the enzymatic activity there is actually an RNA. It's an RNA. It's a ribozyme, right? So I think that in and of itself is extremely good evidence that that RNA is extremely basal in this system. It probably came before proteins.
Well, yeah, no, I was just merely saying that there seems to be a lot of other contending theory, or not theories, hypotheses.
Okay, what's another one?
Well, from what I read, and I'm not even sure if this is more plausible or not, just to put that out there, it's the GAD-V world hypothesis, which goes in direct opposition of the RNA world hypothesis, from my understanding.
Okay, sure. What's I'm not really familiar with that one. What does that one say?
I'm not really sure either. I just know that it's a contending hypothesis.
Well, okay, but why is it? You said that it's like the opposite of it. So what is it saying?
I'm not really sure. I haven't read too much into it. Do you want to read into it?
Well, how would you know that it's the opposite if you don't know what it is?
Because other scientists have postulated that it would be the opposite of the RNA world hypothesis, and I'm just going off what they're saying, since I don't really know too much about the subject.
Okay, right. So in terms of things that you trust, it's scientists. You do trust them.
Yeah, I would say that insofar as it comes to making scientific inquiries or decisions on things that I don't know much about, I'll generally appeal to the epistemic consensus.
I think that seems fair. I mean, not in all circumstances. I think that we all lived through a major example quite recently of why it is that sometimes you can't trust the science. But I mean, yeah. Generally speaking, I think that science is pretty trustworthy. Sometimes, mostly, definitely not all the time.
Well, okay.
But okay, so all right, so you're saying that there's another theory out there, and it's different than the RNA world hypothesis. We're not sure what that is, but it's out there. So yeah, okay, fine.
I'm just saying the GAD-V world hypothesis.
Right. There's always other explanations for anything in science. I mean, that's good science, right? Like for instance, there's other hypotheses about how to blend relativity with quantum mechanics outside of just string theory and M theory, right? And it's good that we have those alternative ideas in case string theory and M theory don't work out, right? So yeah, that's fine. I can accept that.
And then it's just like kind of like reading into the book about revolutionary phenotype. It just seems that a lot of this is based on grounds that we don't necessarily know for sure. And seeing as like, I'm a new reader and like this is something that I didn't know existed before, it just seems a little bit, well, in my opinion, it just seems just a little bit unconvincing.
Okay, what about it is unconvincing?
Well, yeah, I already told you the highly theoretical, the fact that it's deferring to a hypothesis that we don't even know is true.
Okay, so you're saying that because this is all a theory.
It's not even a theory, it's a hypothesis.
Okay. I mean, I think that
it just seems a bit hamstringed is what I'm getting at.
Okay, so what you're saying is that it's called the RNA world hypothesis, and they use the world hypothesis, and there's some other competing ideas, and so you're saying because like it's not known, then you don't like it.
But what I'm saying is that this is just something that we don't necessarily have too much evidence for. In the same way, or we don't have too much evidence on the implication of using different gene editing technologies to modify a genome and its implications on the person and their bloodline,
Okay.
potentially.
But
So I
we
would rather not work off of data that we have very scant information on.
okay, right. Uh, so as far as I know, number one, the RNA world hypothesis is probably the leading idea as to what the world looked like prior to DNA. Number two,
Yeah, it's generally accepted as a
okay,
hypothesis. Yeah,
right,
that's
because
true.
it makes the most sense. Number two,
Yeah.
I think that just based off of what you can see about DNA itself, it seems to be very clear that DNA came from RNA. It wouldn't have evolved independently just in the environment by itself because again, what I was talking about previously. DNA doesn't really have any sort of enzymatic activity. It's extremely stable. Um, in a dry environment, in an aqueous environment, it's an incredibly stable molecule. Um, and it doesn't like in terms of like any sort of like a nucleotide changes. It's very resistant towards those. Um, but it can't really interact with its environment just by itself. So it it wouldn't have just popped out of the ether. Like something had to lead to it. Well, what led to it? Well, clearly it's going to be RNA because they share all of the nucleotides, right? You have A, T, G, and C versus A, U, G, and C. So DNA clearly was basically an invention of RNA. RNA is the only other thing that really seems to have, I guess, like little nucleotide bits that can like store information. So like maybe there are some other hypotheses, but I mean this one seems to be the clearest. And if RNA led to DNA, then there was a phenotypic revolution that occurred. So I mean you can say that you're not sure. You can say that you're not really sure what to trust. But I would say that in like if you're going to critique an idea, you should probably have some like arguments against it as opposed to just saying, well, I don't know enough and like no one knows enough, so like I don't trust it. Like you should have like some arguments that actually go against the idea
Yeah,
in
and
that
that's my
case.
argument. My argument is that there are other compending or contending hypotheses,
Ones that you can't explain.
and yeah, ones that I can't explain,
Okay,
but
yeah.
they're important nonetheless because it does show that this isn't necessarily something that's set in stone or even a theory.
Okay, yeah. I mean, generally speaking, I work with the idea that that the world exists, that reality exists, and that we can make repeatable and reliable
This is not
observations
necessarily
upon said
equivocal, by
reality.
the way, but you can go ahead
Now
and keep
there are other
speaking.
theories that exist, other hypotheses that exist out there that I don't know, maybe we're in the Matrix. Maybe if you talk to I guess some of the what do you call them? They're the cyberneticians. They believe in pragmatic shoot, what do you call it? Pragmatic. I forget the name of it, but basically they believe that perception alters reality, not that reality alters perception. Very very odd thing to believe, but some people think that reality doesn't even exist. It's actually formed through people thinking. I don't know. I mean, like sure, like those exist, but like generally speaking, I accept that reality exists. Like that's like my baseline assumption.
Yeah, and then there are other contending theories or hypotheses to that, such as I think it was called Lapis Laploon or like Laploon's demon. I forgot what it was called, but it was like that, like, oh, how do you know your reality? But even then, it's still not even equivocal to the RNA world hypothesis versus the GADV protein hypothesis. It's not even equivocal to that.
So I don't know this hypothesis, but I'm assuming if you said the protein hypothesis, so that's saying that
I don't remember. I don't even
that's
remember
saying
if
that
it was
maybe
the protein. It
proteins
was
came
like
first.
GADV. Was the GADV? Yeah, yeah, protein. It was the GADV protein world hypothesis.
Okay, yeah, the protein world hypothesis. Yeah, I've heard of a protein world hypothesis. I um I I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know why it is that that they would actually have to conflict. I mean, is it not possible that uh, that that proteins could have come first and then created RNA, and then RNA created DNA? So actually, we like a phenotypic revolution has happened multiple times. Like, is that not something that could be the case?
Yeah, it could be the case. It's just the thing is we don't necessarily know if it's going to happen in the future.
No, no, we can't know anything. But I guess
Well, that's not what I'm saying, but okay.
I mean, can we really know anything about the future, right? I mean, who knows? An asteroid could strike the Earth tomorrow, and this entire conversation would be moot. But I mean, I think that
That's not what I'm saying either.
well, but I think that I explained how it is that that this phenotypic revolution could happen. How it's sort of an insidious thing that one can go down. Um, like you can say we don't know, and I accept. Okay, fine, we don't know. That's cool, but where's the flaw in the reasoning? Just look at the reasoning by itself.
Because you're postulating that a human being or human beings are going to be necessarily subservient to this thing that gives them advantages when there could be a variety of other possibilities.
Oh,
Maybe we don't become subservient to that thing.
okay, how would that happen? That we maintain our non-subservience while
Like it could be, it could be that we find a way to manipulate this technology or modify this technology so that human beings don't become extinct.
okay, but how would
And also, you've
how would
never
you do
really
that?
said how exactly human beings would become extinct. How would they become extinct? Is it
Well,
just because the replicator or whatever would decide to turn them into something else? Is that what you're saying?
I
From my
guess
understanding.
uh it's uh they would cease to be their own replicator, right? Which I think is equivalent to extinction. So
Wait,
basically,
how?
right. So at the
You
point,
even mentioned that there were like natural human beings that would still exist or whatever, right?
oh, but they would be outcompeted. Like you can't. It's kind of like it's like what happened to the Neanderthals, right? They were just kind of outcompeted, and eventually they died out. It happens to like 99% of all species that have ever existed are extinct now because it's just the Earth is a tough rock to survive on. Um, so when there's a whole bunch of people that are just better than you in every way, then the natural human, it's tougher to survive. Now, um, I I I think that basically what would happen is that uh, in this in this in this nature, I think I was going on about a metaphor. Where it's like RNA is the alpha version, DNA is the beta version. So I guess in this gamma version, you would have the Excel spreadsheet version of nature on Earth, and it would still be operating within the processes of natural selection. So it would still be a form of nature, but it would be a radically and drastically different form of nature. And at that point, human beings they could become whatever. I mean, like Breaker was saying, maybe they get turned into slugs. Who knows? I have no idea what they would possibly be turned into. Um,
Do you think it's possible that we would have insight into that kind of process? Insight into how these things unfold so that
mm,
that would necessarily be avoided? Like that could be another possibility that happens.
I think that we hardly have insight into what the stock market is going to look like in a week. So I doubt that.
So you're saying that this technology is going to be as tumultuous and as random as a stock market movement?
Well, the stock market isn't random. The stock market,
Seemingly random or whatever.
the numbers that appear on the ticker when you look at the stock market are just representations of a complex system. And the stock market, for as complex as a system as, let's say, the economy is, natural systems are even more complex. It's basically there are some things that are not possible for human beings to understand. I would point you to not just the economy, but also, let's say, an ecosystem, or let's say the human mind itself, right? These are complex systems. The human mind cannot comprehend complex systems essentially. And so when we're talking about Nature 3.0, where you have this entirely new genotype, and now human beings and their DNA are the phenotype. No, I wouldn't claim to have any ability to predict.
So you wouldn't even say that that would be a possibility that could happen. There are things that we previously knew, or we thought to be, were incredibly complex and couldn't understand, but we later developed an understanding of those things.
Well, right. So let me put it like this. Nature itself, super complex. It produces incredibly complex structures. You can't even hope to know, like what exactly is going to happen. Like, let's say that you introduce a new species of frog into an ecosystem. You have no idea.
So are you postulating that this AI or this gene editor is going to be as complex as nature?
Let me finish the thought real quick.
Okay.
So, like if you introduce a frog into an ecosystem, you have no idea what sort of ramifications that might have on the ecosystem. But there is something that we do know about nature itself, that it's and this is common to all complex systems. What emerges is basically not understandable. But most complex systems operate via an iteration of very simple rules, and we can understand some of these very simple rules. For instance, natural selection. Darwinian natural selection is a very simple system. It's okay. If you can make more of yourself, then there's more likely to be more of you, and that's it. And that's how all of nature operates. Very simple rules, but you iterate that a whole bunch of times, suddenly have incredibly complex systems. So, like, with this, what I'm saying is that the phenotypic revolution, that's operating off of a very simple rule set. That sort of thing, more or less, I think, can be predicted. What comes out of that, the emergent properties that come out of that, that's the thing that we don't know. Right, I'm just trying to specify, just so we can have the clearest conversation that we can.
Yeah, but we do also know about like some of the things that could happen if you introduce another species or another different animal into the environment, like a Burmese python.
What do you think would happen?
Yeah, it would eat everything, and it would well, not everything, but it would eat things that would throw the environment off balance, and it would become the new dominant predator. Or there's just going to be more and more Burmese pythons.
It might, but and it'll maybe throw the ecosystem into chaos for a bit, but eventually it'll settle down, and you'll have a new structure to the ecosystem. And what'll that look like?
Well, we could surmise that it could be a contender to the Burmese python.
Right. I mean, the new, basically, you had the ecosystem in a stable state. You threw in this foreign python. It throws the ecosystem into calamity for a little bit, and then it reaches a different stable state. What that new stable state will look like, we don't know. Which birds will survive? Which birds will learn to live alongside the Burmese python? Will there be a new thing that emerges because the Burmese python eats a predator that was previously keeping down another species, and so now that species is able to actually populate a whole bunch more, and then because now there's a whole bunch of that more species, maybe there's a new predator that can exist to eat that species, and like who knows what the new stable state of the ecosystem is? It's inherently unpredictable because you're dealing with too many emergent properties, right? Like this is just like complex systems 101, right?
Yeah, but we could generally most likely figure out some things that could happen or could be more likely to happen.
Oh yeah, you can hypothesize a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Well, okay. For instance, let me lay this one out. Let's see if you can predict this one. So, in the Chesapeake Bay, you have you have some species of starfish, and you have some species of like clams, right? And the starfish, they eat the clams. Now, I think maybe it's due to pollution, or maybe it's due to some activity of fishing or industry or some shit. But the total number of starfish in the Chesapeake Bay went down. so what happened to all the different species of the clams in the Chesapeake Bay as a result of just number of starfish going down?
Could it be that there's more clams?
I think that there were more total clams, but there's a more specific, interesting thing that actually occurred.
Okay.
Um, you actually had a die off of a number of species of clams. So basically, let's say that there was 15 species of clams previously. Now there's like 6, because they got rid of the starfish that was eating all that was eating all the clams.
Oh, okay.
The reason is because some of the clams were not very good at fending off the starfish, but they were really good at just being pure filter feeders. Now, and then there are other clams that had to expend more energy on being defensive against the starfish, but they're not as good at filter feeding, because they're, everything's a trade-off. So when you get rid of the starfish, suddenly the clams that were very defensive and were good at fending off the starfish, they can no longer compete against the dumb clams that just filter feed no matter what. So you actually see lower species diversity when you take out a predator. It's one of those interesting things, and that's like a super basic thing that can happen in complex systems. But and it gets way crazier than that. So it's just there's so many things that they're not predictable.
Yeah, but you don't think that we could potentially have an inkling, even an inkling of an understanding about how to control or to manipulate any of these complex systems, and to keep refining
where
it?
would you begin?
I'm not sure. I'm just merely laying this out as a hypothetical thing, and that it doesn't necessarily only have to be this one thing that you postulate, where we inevitably fall into slavery or dependence on this replicator.
Oh well, we're already in slavery. What I'm saying is that
What, really? How?
well, what I'm saying is that we're in slavery, but I like my master, and I don't want my master to be replaced, right?
But who's your quote unquote master?
Oh,
Is it your DNA or whatever?
Yeah, that's DNA, of course. Yeah, or nature as it exists itself, like the beta version of nature, where its RNA is the replicator on the dominant replicator on Earth.
Are you not part of nature?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
or
but
are you not a
I'm a
byproduct
phenotype.
of nature itself?
No, I'm a phenotype. I'm not ultimately I I am I am not the master, right? You aren't either. None of us are. Nature is. That's the thing.
Okay. And so you want this nature to keep being your master because it's been a thing for billions of years and you see it as complacent to remain in that system?
No, because it made me, and it makes copies of me, so I like that.
Yeah, but it also, tends to kill you via the degradation of your cells and the accumulation of senescent cells and things like Alzheimer's or dementia, because you weren't meant to live. You weren't meant to live like past 40.
Well,
And nature, quote unquote, nature will only keep you around for as long as you reproduce.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, all things die. Even the earth is not eternal. That's okay. That's part of the life cycle. I accept that I'll die. But you know what may not die? My genetic
I'm just
lineage,
saying.
right? Like I can maybe
Yeah, well, I'm
I
just saying that you
myself,
could die sooner than later,
maybe
because of a product of nature.
maybe I myself will die. I mean, yeah, of course I'm gonna die. You're gonna die. We're all gonna die. That's fine.
Well, I'm just saying that it could be sooner rather
But
than
my
later.
kids-
It could be.
But my kids will survive, and then they'll have grandchildren, and then those grandchildren will have their own grandchildren. You can have basically a genetic lineage that never dies. That's true immortality.
What does that matter if you're dead?
Well,
Like, why would you care about doing that? Like, you basically already died.
Why
Like,
would
what matters after
why would I
you
care
you
about
die?
why would I care about my genetic lineage?
Yeah, like,
Okay, I mean, if you don't know why that's important, then I think that's more on you than me. That you don't know why that's important.
well, not really. I think I think it's more up to you to explain that. Like, why does that matter?
What why does having kids matter?
No. Why does it matter? Like, why does having a quote-unquote legacy matter to you? Just in the first place. What does that matter to you?
Well, it seems to be important because you'll notice that you have parents.
Okay.
And your parents actually have their own parents.
Yeah, okay. Are you gonna keep telling me the obvious?
Yeah, and then their parents have their own parents. Everyone has a parent, right? So
Okay, and?
the reason why you exist and you're around to be able to contemplate this question at all is the result of basically a very, very, very long genetic lineage of people deciding to reproduce. And even though it's easier to just not reproduce and just say, fuck having kids, they're expensive, and it takes time and energy and resources to rear them and raise them, you're the result of just an endless process of people and animals, going back far enough, that decided to do that. And so the existence, like existence itself, seems to exist because people choose to have kids. Ergo, it is important for you and me and everyone that's alive today to have kids. Those that choose not to have kids, they do not continue the existence of their own genes, their own bloodline. They're the end of a lineage. That's
You
sad.
still haven't proven how that matters.
Oh, well, in theory, nothing matters, right? Like, we can all be nihilistic. But I choose to think that seems to be important because that's the thing that made you. You wouldn't exist if it weren't for that thing. And so I think that thing is important. That's why I exist, right? It seems to be an important thing.
Well, yeah, well, just because I exist or you exist doesn't necessarily mean that it's important for other people to exist
Well,
in the future,
it's important.
based off your own progeny or whatever.
No, the reason why those people exist is because their parents chose to put in the effort to have them. It's the same with everyone. Like, I'm not related to you or whatever. And what I would say is, hey, you know what? Like, personally speaking, I think it's important to have kids and have grandchildren and whatnot, you know. But if you choose not to, I support that decision on your part because that means less competition for my own kids. In fact, get a vasectomy. Fuck yeah. That's a total Chad thing to do. Go get a vasectomy. Don't have kids. More room for my kids. Fuck yeah.
Well, whether I have kids or not is not necessarily dependent on, your kids being able to have more kids.
Well, no, I mean, if you have kids, they might take resources from my kids, so, like, it's better that you just don't.
Okay.
Like, dude, honestly, go get a vasectomy. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not necessarily saying that either. I'm just saying that, like, when you have progeny, like, you're basically creating something else that at the end, when you're on your deathbed and you're going to die, like, and after it's just not going to make sense for you to even think about that.
Why wouldn't I? I mean, shit. What? Okay.
Like, after you're dead, like, why does that why do things happening after your death matter? Like, if somebody were to, like, throw you into the ocean after you die, why would that matter?
Oh, I mean, if you're asking, like, why do I care what happens to my body? No.
Or even the world after you die.
Oh, well, I think that it won't be possible for me to care about things when I'm dead, because I'll be dead. But
right now, as it stands,
but it is important. It is important for me to care about things after my life is ended. Like right now, while I'm alive, I care about things in the future that will occur after I'm dead. I care about those things right now.
Why?
Because
and how do you know that you're gonna die at that point?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I'll die eventually. I don't know when I'm
gonna
die,
eventually.
But I will die.
I'm just saying that, like, after that happens, like, what is the point? Why would you care about something that's that far?
I care about,
like, let's say in 1,000 years.
I care about the existence of my great-great-grandchildren. Let me say that.
Why?
They don't exist yet, but I care about them.
That doesn't even make sense. How or why?
What do you mean that doesn't make sense? Why would I not care about that? They're my offspring.
Because you're never going to see them. You're never going to interact with them. You're never going to do anything with them.
That's all right. It is within the capability of a human to care about things in the future. Like a dog can't really think about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
future, but a human can.
It's okay to care about things in the future. It's just like after you've passed the point where you've already died, like that doesn't even begin to make sense.
I mean, why is it that people would build churches, right? Like why is it that a pharaoh would build a pyramid? It's because human beings have the capacity to care about things that will exist after their own life. And
Yeah, I'm
like
not disputing that. I'm just saying like why would you place an importance on that?
why
Like
why
why is
why
that why
wouldn't
is
you?
that
Why would you narrow
because it
your
could be a waste of time because there could be other pertinent things happening right now in the present.
okay, I mean, sure, but like why would you specifically cut off and narrow your focus to things that only occur within your own lifetime? Like, don't you
Because
think
you'll
that
subject yourself to like pie in the sky kind of thinking based on things that haven't even materialized into reality.
I don't think that it's pie in the sky to assume that my grandchildren will have their own kids. I think that that's a reasonable assumption
Yeah,
that I would like to work towards.
because you're assuming that you're gonna have kids in the first place, number one, and
Mhm.
number two, you're assuming that the kids that you will have kids. Like there are other more important things to worry about than thinking about that.
Oh, okay. What's one of these more important things?
I don't know. It could be getting food. It could be
I already have
furthering your
food.
own skill set. It could be furthering your own progeny. It could be literally working to have kids.
Okay, yeah, yeah, 100%. Like you have to deal with the proximal, of course,
Yeah.
but human beings they can deal with like more proximal things, and they can deal with also more abstracted things
It could be like
simultaneously.
wait, hold on. It could be like climate change, right? Am I gonna tell a Victorian who's living in the 1700s or the 1800s, hey, don't do that thing, or don't further this technology because it could cause catastrophic damages after you die? Like it would be really hard for me to convince that person not to go ahead and build what they're building.
Well, right. I mean, assuming that you had time travel, I
Yeah,
guess I
assuming that I
don't
had
know.
time travel, it would be hard to convince them of that notion. Like, hey, we have this new technology, it's going to give us more things, and those more things are good for us because we're going to have more opportunities to live past our normal life expectancy, and because we're going to have X, Y, and Z technology that's going to make our lives easier. And you're telling me that like 50 years after I die, like there's going to be a chance of like what, I don't know if you believe this or not, but like a chance of what, like pollution or some shit?
Right. So, I mean, are you saying that like that it's better for human beings to solely focus on the here and now and not really think into the future? Like that's a
I think that futuristic thinking is important and useful up until a certain point, right? Because up until that certain point, it becomes speculation and it's just something that you don't necessarily know too much about.
oh,
In the same way where like I don't know, like if I was in the 1700s, I'm not going to be thinking about what's going to be happening in like the year 1900 because I built this invention.
okay, right. So it's it seems to me as though it is actually really important to think about the future. We
Yeah, up until a certain point, yeah.
well, okay, we may not have like the best inclinations about what is going to happen in the future, but we can sometimes have like a vague idea about what's going to happen. For instance, right? Um, like if you're existing 1,000 years ago in Europe, you know that winter is going to come, and you know that summer is going to come, and so you plant during the summer and
Yeah, like that kind of thinking is important. That's the type of thinking that I'm talking about, yeah.
right, okay, fine, fine. And so think in that context, thinking about the future is important. But then
Yeah.
also, let's say that I want to build let's say that let's say that I'm a relatively well-off house, and I want to build a really big fucking castle where I can keep my family in because I want my
Yeah,
house
like that's fine. Yeah,
to
because
become a
you're
great
that's your current.
lordship. Hold on, I want
Yeah.
it to become a great lordship, and I want for the next 50 generations, I want my family to live in the castle and be great lords. Great families, I guess, like historically, were built by people that were seeing into the future, and they were like, this is how we secure a legacy. And I don't think that it's unreasonable. I mean, shit, I'm not even trying to be a lord. I'm just like, yeah, I would like my grandchildren to have their own kids, and so like, yeah, I got to think about that. I like
You got to think
that's
about the revolutionary phenotype and how it's like we don't even know if it's going to happen. And as you said, this is an extremely gradual process.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that will happen within the realm of like, or you theorize or hypothesize that it'll happen in the realm of like 1,000,000 years. Am I correct when I say that, or not? Is it going to be sooner?
Oh, I don't know if it would take 1,000,000 years, but
Or I don't know. In the book,
think
it
the
said that it's
slug
going to be super
thing-
gradual, super
The slug
gradual.
thing would probably take 1,000,000 years, or like full vestigial sexual organs. That's the kind of thing that would take 1,000,000 years. But yeah,
Well, yeah, that's when it becomes dangerous, no? Because you're not going to be a human anymore, right?
right.
yeah, but it's not as though you wake up one day. It's like, oh, my genitals are gone. Well,
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
I can no
yeah.
longer
It's a
sexually
gradual, like you
reproduce.
said, it's a gradual process, right?
Right. It's see with that sort of thing, it's that look, you don't have to agree with my arguments, but let me say this: I agree with my argument. I should more specifically say, I agree with JFG's argument, and because of that, I realize that this is something that is potentially extremely dangerous, and I don't even have to think about 1,000,000 years down the road. What I'm saying is that if the reasoning is more or less valid, then this is a technology that is occurring today and needs to be stopped today. The threat of it is too great. That's what I'm saying. Like, there was the Chinese guy who already did the germline genetic engineering of those twins in China. Like, that's already happened. It actually has to be dealt with today. Like, there are certain things that have to be dealt with today. They can't be dealt with 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now. They have to be dealt with right now. And you're saying, well, we don't know.
Well, yeah.
We don't know if there's a threat. So, like, why even worry about it? Okay, fine. Maybe we don't know if there's a threat.
Well, we
But
know
I can-
that currently, as it stands, genetic engineering or editing of the genome via CRISPR-Cas9 or other gene editing technology, we know that it's not safe, right? We know that there are imprecisions
for very different
within that
reasons.
technology.
No,
right?
no.
We know.
The safety that you're talking about is, does it hurt the person? The safety that I'm talking about is actually, shit, does it help the person? Because it in my opinion, the technology becomes extremely unsafe when it actually starts helping people. That's when we go over the waterfall. And
it just starts becoming unsafe because of something that's going to happen in 100,000 years, or we don't even know if that's going to happen in 100,000 years. Like, do you see how this
That's
type of
the-
thinking could
right.
lend you to
let's
taking
say,
like things that might not even happen?
right. Okay. So, what do you think the chances are that that this line of reasoning is correct? Do you think it's 0%? Like, there's no way that it can happen?
If I were to give a percentage to it, it's probably like 5% or 2%.
Okay. All right. Let's assume it's 5%. Okay. So if I'm right, then there's a 5% chance that this works out how I'm saying it will work out. Well, that means that it leads to the extinction of mankind. Okay. Even if
Yeah, and
there's
there
a
are
5%
greater
chance.
percentages. There are greater percentages that could also
Okay.
lead to the extinction of mankind.
Yeah,
mankind,
and that's you saying that it's 5% when as you admitted on the outside of this that you don't know that much about it, right? And you're of
I've
course-
read the book. I'm familiar with the
Right, okay.
arguments. I've looked into the technology. It just doesn't seem like something that's likely to happen. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. And you're not exactly sure why. You just feel like it's based off of hypotheses. You
Well,
think
no.
about. I
The
get it.
reason why you're saying that
point
I don't
is-
feel why
the
is because
point
I don't know how to
is that-
explain to you the GAD-V protein world
Okay,
hypothesis.
great,
So you're
great.
extending that onto this, which again
Fantastic.
doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
I'm just laying that out as a contender to the RNA hypothesis.
So
or the RNA world hypothesis.
Given that I guess, allow me to rephrase. In your extremely learned and I'm sure scholarly and valid prediction that there's only a 5% chance that this occurs, that's still a 5% chance that this is a very grievous very grievous existential harm to humanity. It's something that would make humanity go extinct. Even if it's 5%, that's something worth worrying about today. And you're right, it wouldn't come to fruition until like 1,000,000 years from now. But the thing is that, like I was saying, the minute that you take one step down that path, it becomes a slippier and slippier slope. It's a little bit like how with the gay marriage thing, right? Like I was in favor of gay marriage. I was like, yeah, they should be able to marry. And then there was a whole bunch of conservatives. They were like, hey, if you let the gays marry, then tomorrow they're gonna be trying to turn your kids gay. And you know what? Um, well, they were wrong, okay? Because they're not trying to turn your kids gay. They're trying to turn your kids trans now, right? Totally different. They were completely wrong. But it did end up being a slippery
What?
slope, right? So these are things that we
Not
do have
really,
to
no,
concern ourselves with.
absolutely not. No.
What?
People aren't just trying to, out of the blue, like 100% turn your kids trans.
They're
Like they're
not?
not for, no.
Oh, what's happening then?
Well, what's happening is that you're basically creating a narrative that is, not for sure, but could lead into a slippery slope, right? But I would say that you're getting into like A to Z without establishing like B, C, D, etc., right? And so like I don't think it would be unreasonable for somebody to say that like you're making a very far off conclusion based on very scant points.
Okay. So, uh,
And that is necessarily irrational.
it's necessarily irrational.
Yeah, for me making a point from A to Z is irrational. Yes.
Okay, so what point am I making from A to Z? Is it the trans kid stuff, or are we talking about the
No, it
Phenotypic
was
Revolution?
it was that, and it was the fact that you said that the revolutionary phenotype is going to profligate into itself and lead to the extinction of humanity. Like that is an A to Z point. And the trans kid stuff, it's not even true, right? Not nobody's trying to forcibly trans children. Like, you know how many trans children there are in the United States?
How
There's
I
like four.
how
There's
many
4,000.
are
There's
there?
4,000. Yes, there's 4,000 children in the United States. Or I'm sorry, trans children in the United States.
I don't think that's true.
You don't think that's true? Why not?
I think there's a lot more than 4,000.
Like how much? If you
Well,
were to give a number.
shoot. Let's see. How many I guess high school kids are there in America? Maybe like I'm just guessing like 30 million, maybe. I don't know.
30
Ballpark.
million
No,
trans kids.
hold on. I'm what I said. There's like maybe 30 million high schoolers in America. I don't know. This is off the top of my head. Um, and what is the rate of kids that are like a uh that identify as a gender that is different from the one that they were assigned? It's some percentage. It's like I don't know, it's somewhere between 1% and 5%. So like it's it's like I don't know, like maybe a few 100,000 trans kids. I would say probably 4,000 seems way too low because like my girlfriend's brother who's in high school right now. I mean, he has friends who identify as a different gender, and like he knows a few of them. So like he himself knows a few. So there's got to be more than 4,000. I think 4,000, that's an absurd number. I don't know where you got that number from.
Here, I'll show you.
I think he's defining quote unquote trans kids as like the full like gender dysphoria level thing, not like the trendy I'm pizza gender thing.
Well, okay. So like, is it like is it the kids that are diagnosed as gender dysphoria like via the DSM 5, and like they've gone to like the psychiatric counseling, and like they've gotten like a double mastectomy? Like is it that style of trans kid? Because yeah, there's probably fewer of those, but there's a lot of kids um that are, I don't know, they just they weird we, they think weird stuff.
Gender
Yeah, so
non-conforming is to say
for
it
trans
simply.
teenagers, that's like about 300,000, right? Now for trans children, what I remember reading is that there was 4,000 or 5,000.
Well, sorry, what? Okay, so for the for the kids, this is like someone that's younger than 13.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure I read that it was about 4,000 to 5,000.
okay, right. So
And
when
you got the 300,000 thing
right,
right because those are teenagers ages 13 to 17.
okay, right. So I guess maybe you're correct that below the age of 13, it's not as common. But when I say trans kids, I just mean anyone who's below the age of 18 because they're not adults, right?
Okay,
Fucking trans
even
kids.
300,000 is a pretty low number.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, compared to like the rest of the teenage population, yes.
It didn't used to be that way. I'll tell
That's
you
a
what.
lot of kids.
I'll tell you what. Back when I was in high school, this didn't exist. Was not a thing.
I never remember hearing about.
Is it
The only
not a
place I
thing?
heard about
Mhm.
like pan gender and pizza gender was on like fetish websites. That's the most place I ever heard of that explicitly. Even in like super edgy, like progressive media that I would consume on a regular basis back then, never really got into the whole like. As a matter of fact, it used to be kind of like a gag. Like if you remember that Saturday Night Live character Pat, like who or what is Pat? No one knows that was the joke. They were androgynous and no one knew their gender, and it was the whole crux of the joke that they were really androgynous. But now that's just like 300,000.
Well, is
Where
it
it used to be
is it
so
because
rare
before?
as to be this absurdism.
Well, is it because before we didn't have that much evidence? We didn't have that much evidence about like the number of trans children or trans. I agree with you. It was lower, right? And that social contagion and different kinds of exposure could lend credence, or it could lend to the increase in the trans population. But do we really know how much there were at those times? Like, do we know about, like, was there any polling or anything that occurred around those times so we could compare? I need to look it
Well,
up. But anyways,
I
back
think
to the
that
main point.
if you were to look at it, like if you take the more right-leaning argument, I think they would say this is obviously a social contagion. If you take the more left-leaning argument, they would say actually there was just as many back then. They were all just repressed by the by the cis heteronormative society, and we've broken up that very oppressive system, and now people are more able to be open with what they are. Now, I think that's absurd, of course, because fundamentally, what is a human mostly meant to do? Uh, be a breeder, have kids. The nature didn't make human beings to just fucking, go have gay sex in a nightclub. That's not why human beings exist. They're meant to raise kids. There are some aberrations of that. Breaker exists, but that's what human beings are meant to do. So whatever is happening now, I think it's a sickness. It's not the baseline normality of humanity. Although we're a ways away from the baseline.
Well, I mean, that's not even like
period.
Like normal would be a quite significant portion of the population, but trans people don't even make up that much of a significant portion of the population.
Okay, I mean,
unless you say that they will be, which I don't know if that's true.
Well, the trend has been for there to be more trans people, so who knows how far that trend line continues. Maybe it stops growing tomorrow. Maybe it continues to grow for the next decade. I have no idea.
This is getting a bit far afield of the original subject as well.
It is, but it's an interesting discussion. I mean, shit, like this isn't it.
Well, yeah, this began because of we just got into a whole web of arguments regarding, getting from point A to Z to point A to Z to point A to D and things like that. Yeah.
This is like a bit of a contentious point, like I asked you about before, and you became extremely defensive about, because there is
are you
something
supposed to be the
like,
moderator?
Well, yeah, but when I notice like dishonest interlocutions happening, that's something that's part of the moderation as well when you think about it. Because, I mean, you come in here and you're like, you obviously are like taking the con stance. Like, you don't believe that the revolutionary phenotype, insofar as it's even a thing, is that much of a problem.
Well, that would be the null hypothesis, that I don't know, or I don't think it exists, or I don't think it's going to happen. That's the null hypothesis, right? And it's up to you to assert the alternative hypothesis, right? The alternative hypothesis that it will happen, or is an issue.
But you don't merely have a null hypothesis. You have an active stance because you've made several active arguments.
This is the null hypothesis. This is by definition the null hypothesis.
Well,
that I don't know, or it's not going to happen.
It would be unless you made positive assertions like pointing out argument from tradition fallacies, or what you perceive to be argument from tradition fallacies, and slippery slope fallacies, and like incomplete arguments and things like that. Like, you are making positive assertions along this line.
Well, yeah, because you're basing something off of an alternative hypothesis that hasn't been proven. So
It's not an alternative hypothesis. It's the hypothesis.
you haven't even demonstrated that, though.
Okay, I mean, what would it be alternative to? What is the primary hypothesis?
The primary hypothesis is that this either does not exist or will not exist.
Wait, the primary hypothesis is the null hypothesis?
The null hypothesis is the current thing in which we assume or we take because you are asserting something else. So let's say I say, let's say that you tell me, oh, there's something behind you and it's dancing and it's on fire, right? The null hypothesis would be, no, there isn't, or I don't know if it is, right? And then it's up to you to assert, yes, it is there, yes, it is happening. And you could do that by saying, like, oh, you can hear crackling noises, or you could turn around, or something like that, right? And so you'd have to argue for your alternative hypothesis, and I argue for the null hypothesis.
Okay, all right, sure.
The problem is also that you can't prove a negative. You can only take a positive assertion and point out, it's like, here's how that positive assertion may be faulty,
Well,
which the only thing you've done insofar as that, Scifen, is point out a theory that you have admitted multiple times you don't understand how that alternate theory even works. So you have done little
Because
to
I didn't
nothing
come
to
here
point
to
out the
argue about that
efficacy.
fucking theory. I came here to argue about whether there was any kind of veracity
Right.
to what General Chief is postulating right now.
I mean, to be fair, I think that you've come here and you've said, I don't think that this is a thing. Which, okay, like 100%, you did that. You came here, you said, I don't believe in this. I don't trust it. I don't see enough evidence. I don't know enough evidence. I don't trust it.
I'll tell you this, right? So currently, right, you're in the schema where you think this is going to happen, right? And I think a stronger point that you could be arguing right now is the negatives of genetic engineering and, germline editing, right? And you could instead advocate for somatic cell editing as a future more strong alternative to germline editing, right? Because there are flaws that currently exist with gene editing.
Why would I argue about that?
Because it's something that you can see. It's something that is right in front of you.
Okay,
The
but it's
evidence
something
is
that I don't
there
care
to
about.
prove. Why not? That's a stronger point that you could make than this.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you can always make stronger points, but there are things that I care about, and there's things that I don't care about, right? Like by
necessity,
merits,
okay.
The strict medical and scientific merits of germline versus somatic genetic engineering, like specifically in the context of like, is this going like what are the medical ramifications of this? Like, will this hurt or harm someone? I don't care. And the reason why I don't care is because...
But isn't this something that leads in to what you believe in, which is the revolutionary phenotype? So by definition, you should care because this is a point that leads to there?
No. I care about I care about the eventual ramifications of germline genetic engineering.
And why not the process?
Well, that would be disingenuous. Basically what I would be doing is I would be saying, I have a completely ulterior motive as to why it is that I think that germline is way worse than somatic. My motives for this are completely ulterior, and I will not reveal them, but I will use them to inform my thinking about why it is that, like, I think that germline manipulation is unhealthy for people, and I'm merely making these points purely for just health reasons. That would be disingenuous, and I try not to be disingenuous. But you're right. I could maybe do something like that. I just wouldn't want to, because why?
Well, it's the difference between is what I'm arguing for reasonable or not, right? I can't go up to someone on the street and start saying that.
For is extremely reasonable. Yeah.
Not really, no, because it's all purely based on a hypothetical.
Go, Scifen, go.
It's all based on a pure hypothetical that we don't even know what's going to happen. It's even based on a hypothesis that we don't even know if it's true, and it's still a hypothesis, not a theory. So you're basing it on something that we don't even know, right? So why not base it on something that we do know so that your point could be stronger? Like, it's easier for me to argue that the current way that we do genetic engineering isn't suitable for now. And it's just like, it's an easier point to argue, number one, and it's something that will help you in what you want, number two, assuming that it exists. So you get the best of both worlds.
Right. So, I think it would be like this. It's like, I think that China, basically wants to become the world hegemon and replace the United States. That's what I think. Now, that's a hypothesis, and I mean that's going to be way off in the future. So who knows what's going to happen, right? So maybe instead of arguing that I think that China is trying to replace the U.S. as the world hegemon, and they would be a far worse world hegemon because they're authoritarian and evil and communist. But I repeat myself. Maybe I could say, oh, well, Chinese goods, they're inferior to the United States. We shouldn't trade with them. The whole world shouldn't trade with them because Chinese goods they're not good. I mean, maybe that would be a more practical argument, but ultimately that would be disingenuous because I don't really have strong opinions about what China happens to manufacture. Honestly, yeah, they tend to be a little bit lower quality, but they're a hell of a lot cheaper. So that's just solid capitalism in my perspective. No, the actual issue that I will address honestly, whether strategically or tactically it's the best thing or not, I won't be disingenuous. I will argue what I believe. I believe that China is trying to replace the United States as the world hegemon, and I think that we need to fight against that, even if that is going to be 50 years down the line. Why wouldn't I?
Then your argument would be to maintain the United States in its current position, and you could say that some of the other countries like China, that what they're doing is they're getting trade routes and they're trying to outmaneuver some of our economic practices, and they're trying to do different things to put us down. And you could argue to circumnavigate that, and you could create a better solution to maintain that status.
Okay. Right.
Regardless of whether or not, you already, let's say that you already have this as an assumption. Yes, China is bad and they're trying to outmaneuver us, right? Regardless of whether or not that's true, there are still improvements and there are still things to work on within the country, within the United States, that would further solidify its position, right? Regardless of whether or not the second thing is true, regardless of whether or not China is trying to do that.
Right. Okay. So, I guess I'm hearing you, and what I'm hearing is that the best thing to do is only focus on the proximal and only argue on the proximal. Maybe keep it within like the next 10 years. What I'm saying is
not even 10 years. Maybe it could be like 50, 70 years, just
okay,
within
sure.
your lifetime.
Right. Okay. Fine. What I'm saying is that I think that if you had an entire civilization that did this, that only that kept their thoughts limited to only things that would happen within their own lifetime, that would basically doom the civilization.
Well, not really. No, I disagree.
No,
because
okay,
no, it wouldn't.
Let me lay out because I was in the middle of a sentence. So I think that like there's a reason why it is that like okay, civilizations have to be able to plan more than one generation ahead. They have to be able to. That's how civilizations continue to exist. They have to think more than a generation ahead. And who is it that does the thinking in civilizations? Well, it's the people,
hold on.
Right?
Hold on, wait. Just to add on to what you're saying really quickly. So you have let's say that you're a king, right? And going back to this example,
right? And
that you want to have children, right? And you want to get a wife, you want to reproduce with her, you have children. Then your job is to ensure that those children, are equipped with the same kind of knowledge and the same things that you had before, or even to build upon that, right? So that they can have a better life. And then guess what? That generation is going to do that with the next and the next and the next, and it's going to keep iterating, right? It's not like it's going to stop. It's not like it's going to just cease to exist and collapse into a wave function. Like, that's not true.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. I forget who it was that purchased Alaska. Was it Abraham Lincoln or Andrew Jackson or something?
I don't remember.
Some president purchased Alaska, right? And
Yeah.
they did so for pretty cheap. They got a damn good deal on it. Now,
Okay.
at the time there was no one living in Alaska, and it would have taken like it took generations to actually like get people into Alaska, and even now like basically hardly anyone exists there. It's still basically a frontier state. Um, like why is it that anyone would have purchased Alaska, given that it would have taken more than a generation for that to play out? In fact, for a few generations, it was a net loss because like no one was living there. Or let me put this forward. Like why is it that humanity would ever like try to reach Mars or like even begin the space program, right?
Because there could be things that we learn about trying to achieve that are valuable for the present. That's why.
No, you're right, but you're basically you're putting forward this limiter for humans where you should really only think about things that exist within.
It's just
your
because we have
lifetime.
scant data. We have scant data on what
No,
people
you're
are going to
right,
do in the
but
future.
at the same time, I'm glad that like
It's a risk.
the people, yeah, everything, life is a risk.
I'm just saying it's a
But
bigger risk than working on what you have right
everything,
now.
The people that actually started the space program, the benefits of that really are not, they won't be seen for generations, and yet I'm glad that we have a space program. I'm glad that we develop rockets. I'm glad that, I mean, shit, if we ever set up a Mars colony, like maybe we'll start colonizing it in my lifetime, but it'll be many, many generations until that pays off. But you know what? It's a good thing that we end up doing that. It is an excellent thing that man is able to think beyond just his own generation, beyond his own lifetime, and think about the future and set up things that will actually improve life for future generations. This is very important. To limit your scope of thought only to your lifetime, I think is.
I guess I should have clarified this
not a great
further.
thing.
I guess I should have clarified this further, but I'm against looking into the future if there's extremely scant data or there's unsure data to work off of, right? It could be that building a space station right now, right, when, it doesn't seem immediately useful. It doesn't seem to be of, importance right now. It could be, right? And that can be based off of data that does work and that isn't scant.
Okay.
Like let's say how we built planes and stuff, and how we got into like rocket science and everything. Maybe this could be because of the way that it currently works, and because we can take certain things, and we could apply them into things that we already know that work. Then we're gonna base that off of what we already know, right? But to base something off of that you don't know, to base that off of something that you know very little about, I would just say that's unwise, right?
Well, here's the thing, right? If you, we don't have that much data about a lot of things. I think that people have become too overconfident with science and the ability of science to predict things. We don't know most things, especially the future. There's a lot of things that we don't know about it, and sometimes, even when you have scant data, even when you have no data, you just still have to push forward and take the risk. For instance,
Yeah, but it has to be calculated. It has to.
Does
you
it?
have to.
Because who knew?
Yes. Yes.
Who knew if like how much data did England have on America and if those colonies were going to survive? How much data did they have? I would say they had very scant data. They didn't even know exactly what the continent even looked like. They didn't know how wide it was. They didn't know. There was a lot of things that they didn't know about North America. I mean, these are. They didn't, like, cartographers had not even walked around the boundary of the continent yet. And yet they still sent out colonies, not knowing if those colonies were going to survive, knowing that it would be generations until those colonies actually like conferred any sort of benefit. And to be fair, they didn't confer that much benefit to the British Empire because we rebelled. But still, I'm glad that they did it. Even though they had scant evidence about the future, even though they had scant evidence about the continent, even though they had no idea like what was going to take place, they did it, and I'm glad that they did it.
So I would say that this is more like the stock market, based off of like the scant data that you have to work off of. It is speculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a chance that you could win in the stock market, but for every winner there has to be several losers, right? And there were probably already several losers that happened or that did occur when trying to venture off into other nations.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is this is one of the postulated arguments for the Fermi paradox, right? That it is irrational for a civilization to devote a whole bunch of time and energy and resources to like setting up like a base on another planet, right? Like it like economically speaking, it makes no sense. It's not a logical thing to do. It's irrational to just set up a base on Mars, right? And yet, the universe will only be populated by the civilizations that did that irrational thing and actually tried to set up bases on other planets.
Yeah, and again,
right?
there's a risk, right? I'm not against taking a calculated risk, right?
Mhm.
If you go on Mars, if you devote your time to collecting as much information as possible on this potential thing that could happen, then the chances of you being successful will potentially increase, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so I just think that this needs to happen with the revolutionary phenotype. I think there needs to be more. I think there
Right.
needs to be emerging data or emerging information
Great. We can study it more.
to construct a strong argument, to construct a solid foundation.
Okay.
But right now, as it stands, it is not a solid foundation. It's not. We don't have enough.
Well, and I mean, we're potentially we'll never have enough, right? In the same way that we can never know exactly what the outcome of the Mars colony will be. But I guess my position is that I would like to take the calculated risk of
The humanity or whatever, yeah, not being extinct.
Of trying not to go extinct, and maybe we have to take the
But-
calculated risk
but there's a problem, right?
of not doing germline genetic engineering
But
in order to
here's the thing.
secure that benefit of not
There's
going
a
extinct.
problem with this, right? We
Okay.
know that Mars exists, right? We can see it through a.
And we know that RNA exists. Yeah,
we know that
exactly.
RNA exists. Yeah. But here's the thing: we don't know whether humanity is going to go extinct. We don't know if there's going to be such a thing as like a revolutionary phenotype that harms us. We don't know that,
We
right?
don't know
But
that
until
the Mars
we know
colony
that,
will succeed.
yeah, we don't know if it'll. But we know that Mars is there, right? And in the same way, we know that RNA is there, right? But here's the thing: this is something. This is like, how would I explain this, right? Yeah, RNA exists, Mars exists, but we have current things that we can use to measure and to get to Mars. But we don't have that for the revolutionary phenotype. We don't have that. It is, as you said, it is a complex process, right? And I don't feel comfortable making a decision or making a choice on something that we don't even know is going to exist, right? In the same way where we know that Mars exists, we know how to get there, or how we could potentially get there through a variety of different technology and different applications and different engineering methods and everything like that. But we have no such thing for the revolutionary phenotype. And the things that we do have are very little. And so I would actually agree with your argument, and I would adopt that argument if there was more data, if there was more information, if there was more things that solidify that base.
Well, I'll tell you what, that information may actually exist. I mean, you mentioned yourself that you just started looking into this. It's possible that information does exist that you're looking for. Whatever that information is, I'm not exactly sure what precisely you're looking for.
I want you to point it to me. If you can, I want to see it. I'm willing to have my mind change. I'm willing to go on board with your argument.
Right.
I just want a solid foundation. I want something that is plentiful, right? Something that we can work off of.
Well, okay, so I guess that it's difficult. Like we're talking about like a future scenario here, and so
Yeah.
I can tell you about the theory of the idea, and I can tell you how I think that it is that it would take place, and I mean I can do all of that, but in terms of like hard data of like what will specifically happen, aside from I guess like running a matrix style simulation,
Like a probability, yeah.
then it's going to be very difficult to give you evidence about what the future will hold. I mean, maybe if we built the matrix, then we could look into this further. But for the time being, like this is something that is entirely theoretical about the future. All I can do is lay down arguments about just from first principles what I think will occur. That's all I can do. And so what I'm saying is that this is a risk that's not worth taking. And then that's it. Like, does it really harm humanity that much by not genetically altering our babies to make them really tall and really attractive and maybe a little bit more intelligent? Or do you think that humanity can get by just fine without that sort of stuff? I would say that
Okay,
we
and here's the
can.
thing, right?
And so
It's just
let's
that,
not take the
yeah.
risk.
Here's the thing, right? It's just that there's a lot of assumptions ingrained into this, into this hypothetical, right? And there are some things that are not based on assumptions, right? Such as that people will want their children to be taller, right? That's a future prediction because we have current data on like the people that do exist that do want those things, right? And again, there's some problems with that, but we have gene clinics today. We have companies today that get people who have high IQs, who have went to prestigious universities, who have high SAT scores, and we have other people who want the eggs of those women, right, to make their own children, so that hopefully they'll become the same or better than them in terms of achievement, right? Like that's something like I'm not going to fight with you on that because I know based on current evidence, based on current trends, that's something that people are most likely going to want to happen. And we could also get into other things like, people just want to be better in general. People want to have better outcomes. And, those things are typically associated with better outcomes, right? But the part where you start to get to, okay, there's going to be a machine that's going to contain a shit ton of data and we're going to be subservient to that machine and therefore humanity will go extinct. Like that is a shit ton they're making a shit ton of assumptions there. You're making the assumption that this thing will quote unquote want or materialize humanity into that thing, or like a slug or whatever, and you're making the assumption that this is even well no, storing a gene is possible, yeah, human genome, whatever. You're making the assumption that we're not going to know that this is something that will happen based upon that present year's or that future year's current trend. Like that's the assumptions that you're making, and I don't feel comfortable with just accepting those assumptions.
Well, we're talking about the future. It has to be based off of assumptions.
Well, yeah. I just made an assumption about like what people will want, and I deferred to what people are currently doing to what people could want in the future, right? Like I would be pretty comfortable with saying, yeah, eventually people are going to want taller, smarter children, right? Because we're already doing things that seem to indicate that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would just want to see like evidence as to like how a machine or how a thing is going to potentially want us to be into something else, or if a machine is even capable of doing
right.
that.
No,
right?
it is like I agree with you. I mean, this is necessarily speculative, but I guess that if you really, my position is that if you start storing your genetic information outside of the DNA and in a computer, then that is a very similar situation to RNA storing its genetic information outside of itself in the DNA. There's a lot of parallels there, and so there's cause to be concerned. There's cause for concern. There's cause to be concerned.
And there's two things. Yeah, go ahead.
Because there are so many parallels in that with, let's say, the theoretical RNA world and the replicator tango that previously happened, theoretically, then that in and of itself, even if you think, oh well, maybe humanity will somehow like find a way around this because humans are smart, we'll find a way around this. I mean, maybe, but I mean, my position is that like there's too many parallels with the concept of a phenotypic revolution, and so that's probably something that we want to avoid. Period. It's too
And here's
risky.
the thing, right? Yeah, and here's the thing. For the RNA world, like we would have to find out exactly how this could draw parallels to humanity, because I mean, even just because something draws parallels to that thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to follow the same course as that thing, right? And so I would want to know how exactly this is going to occur. And if this is going to occur, Is it gonna be beneficial for us? And if not, how can we stop that? How can we stop it from not being beneficial
Well,
in the long run?
I think that I laid out how I think it's going to occur, and
Yeah. I'm reiterating. Yeah.
you said that you don't believe in that, and so
Just saying, to be more specific, there's just simply not enough to convince me. It's just not enough.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe in the background, we can work out what would be convincing towards you. But you know what? For now, I feel like we've reached a fair conclusion to this discussion. I wouldn't even call it a debate. Just talking some shop about some phenotypic revolutions. But with that, do you have any closing remarks, Scifen?
Yeah, my closing remark is that I think that we should always try to make as an informed decision as possible, and that we shouldn't make decisions based upon, very scant things that we potentially know very little about. And if we do have those things that we know very little about, and we do assert them, then there needs to be something else to appeal to, or it needs to have a justification as to why we can make that scant assumption, or base information off those scant data, right? And so I am willing to have my mind convinced. I am willing to adopt this position provided it can be suitably argued for based on currently existing knowledge.
Okay, and I would say that I think that some of the greatest achievements that mankind has ever made were based off of making kind of irrational decisions with scant or basically non-existent information, and I'm glad that we did those things. But
then for every decision, there's just like a million other people who fucking failed. So.
Of course. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way natural selection and nature works. You win some, you lose some. Actually, you win very, very little and lose the vast majority. But as long as that very little that you win, well, sometimes that's part of the game. Unfortunately.
Well, yeah, and if I'm going to lose, or if I'm going to try to win, I need to actually know what's in the bag. I need to know, what are the options here, and I need to understand that.
Well, actually, our entire genetic lineage is based off of the 2% that happen to win, and that's really all that we are. 98% of all things fail, but we exist as just a culmination of all of those 2% of things that happen to win. But
yay, the 2%.
Yeah, that's right. We are the 2%, every one of us. But with that, if you made it this far, thank you for listening, everyone. I think we had an interesting discussion about some phenotypic revolution stuff. If you liked what you heard, it would benefit the channel immensely if you liked and subscribed. We're on Rumble now, so the link to that will be in the description, and be sure to go over there and I guess give us a subscribe there as well. I think that we're gonna try to do more things on Rumble, because honestly, it's a freer platform than YouTube, and as far as I can tell, YouTube they don't like our channel very much. They would prefer that it didn't exist. And when I say they, I mean the algorithm. We are very upsetting to the algorithm on YouTube, but not on Rumble. So kind of thinking about doing a lot more Rumble stuff. But with that, any final remarks, Breaker?
The way for Super Mario, you know who you are. Be sure to leave a comment along with Sifen's friend. You know who you are if you reached it to the end of this video. I want both of you to comment banana pancakes in the comment section. And you'll only know to do this if you absolutely go to the total utter end.
I hope no one...
All right, then.
I fucking hope no one comments banana pancakes. What the hell? All right.
Fuck it. If you're viewing this and you've gotten this far, just comment that shit anyways. You're a true soldier.
Oh, boy.
There you go.
Fucking weird shit. All right. Peace out, everyone.
See ya.